Hey guys, this is Paulo here with Meditation Amsterdam. In today's video, I want to share the idea of why attention is our only real working capital and how the main transition that we want to make is one of the inclination towards not knowing and flip that and be inclined to know, and how when we're young, not knowing is safer, but later down the line, the safest play is to know, and how we need to re-educate our minds to orient in that direction. I'd like to welcome all the new people who have subscribed to the channel. It's super motivating, especially towards the end of the year. Glad that you like the content, and for those of you who haven't, you're always welcome. And so the idea came to mind whilst doing shadow work and realizing that the more in touch we are with the somatic sensations of our body, as disagreeable as they may be, that always ends up being the safer option, because we are obtaining all kinds of information about how we actually feel about situations and whether they feel viscerally safe for us or not. And see, this is a rather tricky thing, and you could almost go as far as to define the process of maturation and individuation as facilitated by the inclination to know rather than to reject, repress, or avoid. And it just so happens that it requires entrainment, because in our early years, our mind is geared towards repressing any kind of physical or emotional affront that we're not ready to know about, because it would be too painful. And the younger you are, that could trigger a sympathetic nervous system attack and potentially even kill the child, or render him or her basically inoperative, right? Completely functionally frozen or psychotic. So our mind in those early years of vulnerability, which is both physical and emotional, gives total primacy to the mechanism of repression, and of course also to the mechanisms of people pleasing, let's call it that. Doesn't really apply to an infant. It only becomes so later down the line, but that's the core of it, is the way to see it in a simplistic way. So it does so, and it entrains itself to use imagination and bodily contractions to fend off the perception of somatic and emotional pain. And it entrains itself that way, and that imprint of acting that way is not only super ancient and visceral, but also embedded in the very survival mechanisms of the mind. Now, fast forward a few years to teenage years or adult life, and what you see is a mechanism of repression and avoidance that has latched itself to the mechanics of survival. In other words, to the fear of survival. And once these two things are meshed together, then you associate losing face with dying. In essence, that's kind of, I'm being super simplistic about this, but it's all to make a point. And the point is that the mind from here onwards is survivalistically geared towards repression and avoidance of things that we don't want to feel. There comes a point way past childhood when this mechanism is cemented, where the tactic of not knowing being safer starts to wear out. It starts to render diminishing returns, and so does the people pleasing and obtaining gratification in return. The returns start to dry out, and the pain created by the mechanism in the form of blind spots that get us into all kinds of stupid trouble, or lack of feeling authentic and fulfilled because we're only people pleasing all the time, those things start to take an enormous toll. And when they do, people are either at a loss on what to do, or they get burnouts or heart attacks or collapse, or you name it. Really nasty stuff can happen because of this. Very, very nasty stuff. Repression is a hidden killer. If diabetes was the hidden killer of the body, repression is the hidden killer of the body mind. So then you have the situation where you feel inauthentic, you're wearing yourself out trying to people please, and at the same time things hit you without you knowing why. That's what you could call either a midlife crisis or a spiritual crisis, or whatever it may be. And it forces you to recognize one thing only. It is better to orient your attention towards discomfort and investigate it actively to know what it is made of, that it may convey its information to you. That distasteful as these sensations may be, you are always safer knowing them than not knowing them in adult life. That is in essence what we're trying to retrain. And it is bloody difficult because the mind is entirely obsessed and geared towards predictability, safety, repression, and avoidance. It's just the entrainment that it has. That entrainment may take very commendable pillar of society expressions, altruistic expressions, expressions of love for your fellow human being, and or the nature, or you name it, all very true. But it is essentially a mind that may be, to one degree or another, not oriented towards knowing everything, absolutely everything, and accepting it as it is, right? So the orientation to know, and especially to know what the body is feeling and how, to a very minute and completely open degree. So that is the video that I wanted to share today, is this notion of what it is that we're trying to retrain with spirituality. Our working capital is attention, and the re-entrainment is where to point it towards. Do we point it to fantasy making, thinking, towards just a empty space, or towards watching social media or binge eating or whatever? Or do we orient it towards getting a read on how we feel physically, emotionally, and mentally? As difficult as that may be. So the man-child, or the adult who has failed to launch, is the adult who, to one degree or another, doesn't orient towards the knowing, even if uncomfortable, side of the equation, as simplistic as that may sound. And it just so happens that to look in that direction is bound to scare the hell out of us, because the defense mechanisms of repression and avoidance are embedded in our survival wiring, in our survival systems, neural systems. So I think this is a fascinating thing. It explains why the work is so difficult and so necessary at the same time, and that's why I thought it would be a cool insight to share with you guys. So it's a bit late on a Tuesday. I will call it a video for today, and I am thrilled to have all the newcomers watching the videos and commenting so actively. Thank you so very much. It's very, very motivating to keep doing this. I will be back with more. Do like, share, and subscribe, and see you in the next video. Cheerio, and bye-bye.